I want to do something different today. After months of headlines about cuts and freezes and everything at the grocery store costing more, I want to hand you something that goes the other direction entirely. Starting this July, there are 3 specific pieces of good news for American seniors. 3 real programs with real dollar amounts that exist specifically for you, and that most seniors watching this have either never heard of or have already counted themselves out of before ever checking whether they actually qualify. One of them can stop more than $180 a month from being quietly pulled out of your Social Security check before you ever see it. One of them can knock hundreds off the energy bill that hits you twice a year, winter and summer. And the third is a separate monthly check on top of your Social Security that a significant number of seniors are convinced they cannot receive because they already get retirement benefits. They are flat wrong about that, and it's costing them every single month. All 3 of these programs exist right now. All 3 are real, and research on senior benefit uptake finds that roughly 1 in 3 older Americans who qualify for programs like these never claim a single dollar. Not because the door was locked, because nobody ever told them it was open. That changes right now. I'm going to walk through each one in plain English, tell you the actual 2026 numbers rather than some vague if you have low income language, and give you the exact first step to claim each one. Stay through all 3 because I'm saving the largest potential value for last. And because the income question, the part that causes most people to disqualify themselves before they should, is the most important thing I want you to hear clearly today. For 32 years, I've sat across the kitchen table with real retirees in every kind of financial situation. I'm not selling you anything today. I don't make a dollar whether you claim these or not. I'm telling you because the single most consistently painful thing I've watched across 3 decades of this work is someone who qualified for help, assumed they didn't, and went without it quietly for years while the money sat there waiting for a call that never came. And before we go any further, are you subscribed to this channel yet? If not, take 10 seconds right now and hit that button, and turn on the notification bell while you're at it. Here's exactly why that matters to you specifically. These programs update every single year. Income limits shift. Benefit amounts change with each cost of living adjustment. And when that happens, nobody at any of these agencies picks up the phone to tell you the threshold just moved in your favor. That call does not exist. Covering those changes in plain language the moment they happen is the entire point of what we do here. If you're not subscribed, the next update that opens a door for you passes right by without you ever knowing it was there. Subscribe now and let's go through all 3. Before the programs themselves, I want to explain why July specifically matters this year. At the very end of last year, the annual cost of living adjustment moved the numbers across all 3 of these programs. Benefit amounts when income thresholds shifted, and when those thresholds move, some of the people who were sitting just barely over the eligibility line last year are now sitting comfortably under it this year, without changing a single thing about their own life or their own finances. I need you to hear that clearly because it's the most important context for everything else. If you looked at one of these programs 2 or 3 years ago and were told you earned too much, that decision is out of date. The line moved, not dramatically in most cases, but sometimes the difference between qualifying and not qualifying is a modest number. And a modest shift in the threshold is all it takes to open a door that felt permanently closed. Nobody from the relevant agency is going to call and tell you the numbers moved in your favor. That call does not happen. The only way you ever find out is by checking again. The only cost of checking is a phone call. Quick note before we dive in. Everything I'm about to share applies whether you're renting, own your home outright, or still have a mortgage. None of that disqualifies you on its own, so don't rule yourself out before hearing the actual numbers. Here's the first program. If you're on Medicare, which by the time you reach 65 describes most of the people watching this, you're almost certainly paying a premium for Part B every single month. Part B is the portion that covers doctor visits, outpatient care, and a significant share of what keeps you healthy outside of a hospital. In 2026, the standard premium for Part B runs over $180 a month, automatically deducted from your Social Security check before you ever lay eyes on it. That's more than $2,000 a year pulled quietly and invisibly out of a benefit you earned across a lifetime of working. Here's the good news. There's a program called the Medicare Savings Program through which your state will pay that premium entirely on your behalf. Not reduce it, pay it. The dollars stop disappearing from your monthly check, and your Social Security deposit goes up by that same amount. For a lot of seniors, that's the single largest financial improvement they'll see all year. And it doesn't come from Congress, and it doesn't require anything except applying. In the most generous version of this program, it goes further still. For the lowest income households, deductibles and co-payments stop arriving in the mailbox after doctor visits as well. The bill simply stops coming. Now, the income question, and I need you to stay with me here, because this is exactly the spot where people make the wrong decision in their own heads and walk away from money that was theirs to take. The income limits for these programs are meaningfully higher than most people guess. For a single person, depending on which version of the program applies to your situation, the monthly income threshold can reach into the $1,700 to $1,800 range. For a married couple, the line is higher still. These programs are not designed only for the very lowest incomes. They're built to reach into the modest fixed income range where a lot of working retirees actually sit. Before you wave this off, go and actually check. The application is what does the math, not the assumption you formed at your own kitchen table. I want to put a face on what this looks like in practice. A woman I'll call Dorothy, 71 years old, a retired home health aide, had been watching that Part B premium come out of her Social Security check for 6 years. Not once in 6 years did anyone sit her down and tell her it could be paid for. When someone finally walked through the income limits using her actual numbers, she was under the line. Her state took over the premium. Her check went up by more than $180 a month. She called it the raise nobody had ever given her. What changed for Dorothy wasn't her income. What changed was knowing the door existed and finally walking through it. How do you take the first step? Contact your state health insurance assistance program, commonly called SHIP. It's a free, federally funded counseling service with advisors in every state who will walk you through the Medicare Savings Program at no cost to you, help you understand which version fits your situation, and guide you through the application. You don't need to have your paperwork memorized before you call. You don't need to know which version you're applying for. You simply say, I'm on Medicare, I'm on a fixed income, and I want to know if I qualify to have my Part B premium paid. That sentence is the entire first step. Everything else is their job. Quick pause here before the second program. If what you just heard is already showing you something you didn't know existed, hit subscribe right now before we keep going. This is exactly the kind of thing covered every single week here. The programs and rules that are already written into law, already funded, already waiting, that most seniors never hear about, because nobody whose job it is to collect your money or deduct your premium has any reason to volunteer this information to you. One tap. Now, the second program. The second piece of good news is for anyone whose stomach tightens when the energy bill arrives in the worst of winter or the worst of summer, which in my experience describes most people on a fixed retirement income. There's a federal program delivered through each state called the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program. Most people have never heard of it by name. The ones who have tend to assume without checking that it's for someone in a more difficult financial position than they are in. That assumption is one of the most expensive assumptions a senior can make. Depending on your household size, your income, and the state you live in, this program can direct anywhere from several $100s to close to $1,000 toward your heating and cooling bills in a given year, paid straight to your utility company. You never handle the money, it appears as a credit on your account. And this program covers both directions, heat in winter and cooling in summer. For an older person living alone in the heat of July or August, air conditioning isn't a luxury item. It's a medical safety issue, and this program recognizes that explicitly. There's also a crisis component that most people who even know about the main program never discover. If you've received a shut-off notice, or if a furnace or air conditioning unit has stopped working, there are emergency funds within this same program built specifically for exactly that situation. Not a general assistance fund. Emergency money for the specific moment when the heat or the cooling fails and you can't wait. One thing I want to be direct about, because I've heard this objection more times than I can count across 30 years of doing this work. Claiming this program does not reduce your Social Security. It does not count as income against any other benefit you receive. It doesn't come out of a pot that was meant for someone else. It's a separate allocation of federal funds set aside specifically to help households like yours with energy costs, and it's there whether you use it or not. One practical thing worth knowing. The funding in most states is not unlimited. When a state's allocation for a given period runs out, it runs out until it's replenished. Older Americans on fixed incomes are typically at the front of the priority list, but you have to actually be in line. The application window is open now. Do not file this away and then watch the window close while the money was sitting there with your name on it. How do you claim it? In most of the country, the simplest first step is to dial 211. It's a free helpline available across the United States that will connect you directly to the local office handling this program, exactly where you live. One call, free. No expertise required before you make it. Now, the third program, and I saved this one for last because for the right person, it carries the most potential value. It's also the one with the most stubborn and widespread misconception attached to it, and I want to address that misconception head-on before I say anything else about the program itself. It's called Supplemental Security Income, SSI, and the misconception is this. Most seniors who receive a Social Security retirement check automatically assume SSI isn't available to them because they already receive a government benefit. That assumption is simply incorrect, and it's costing people hundreds of dollars every single month. Social Security retirement and SSI are two completely separate programs, built on two completely different foundations. One is based on your work history and the contributions you and your employers made over the course of your career. The other is a federal income program specifically for people who are 65 or older or disabled, and who are living on limited income with limited resources. If your Social Security retirement check is modest, you can qualify to receive SSI on top of it to bring your total monthly income up to a higher floor. One doesn't automatically cancel the other. They can coexist. For 2026, following the cost of living adjustment, the maximum SSI amount for a single individual runs close to $970 a month. For a couple where both qualify, the combined amount is higher. If you already receive some Social Security retirement income, your SSI is reduced by a portion of it, but reduced is not zero. Even a partial SSI check for someone on a tight fixed income is the difference between a month that works out and one that doesn't. Over a full year, even a partial check adds up to thousands of dollars that aren't in your account right now. Now, SSI does look at resources, meaning savings and assets, and this is where the second layer of misconception creates some of the most damage. The home you live in doesn't count against the resource limit. Your primary vehicle generally doesn't count either. So don't look at the house you own and decide on your own, before ever speaking with anyone who actually knows the rules, that you're automatically disqualified. The people who lose money here are the ones who make that call for themselves at home without checking. The people who collect it are the ones who picked up the phone. I worked with a man I'll call Raymond, 68, who'd spent 35 years in manufacturing, had a modest Social Security retirement check, a small savings account, and a home he'd paid off. He'd assumed for years that SSI was a welfare program for people who'd never worked, and that it had nothing to do with someone who'd worked his entire adult life. He was wrong on both counts. When someone went through his actual numbers with him, he qualified for a partial SSI check that added several $100s a month to his income. The monthly arithmetic of his retirement changed, not dramatically on paper, but enough that the month started working instead of requiring him to choose between things. He'd been eligible for years. He simply never knew to ask the question. How do you apply? Directly through the Social Security Administration, online at SSI.gov, by phone at 1-800-772-1213, or in person at your nearest Social Security office. The application is free. Nobody legitimate charges you a single dollar to help you file it. Now, I want to say something important before we close, because wherever there's money available to seniors, there's someone organized and working hard to steal it. Here's exactly how the scam attached to these three programs operates. You hear about a benefit from a video or a neighbor or an article. Shortly after, someone contacts you by phone, by text, sometimes by email, claiming to be from Medicare, Social Security, or an energy assistance office. They tell you that based on a new program or a new rule, you've been identified as eligible, and they can get your benefits started right now. They just need to confirm your bank account number, your Social Security number, or a verification code that was just sent to your phone. Stop. Hang up. Every time, without guilt, without further conversation. The government does not contact you out of nowhere and ask you to hand over that information in order to give you money. Every legitimate application for every one of the three programs I described today is initiated by you, not by someone calling to tell you they can enroll you right now. If a call creates urgency, asks for account details, and came to you rather than from you, you're talking to a thief. End the call and contact the actual program yourself, using a number you look up independently on the program's official website. Never the number a caller provided to you. Let me bring all three together the way I would at someone's kitchen table, because seeing it stacked tells the real story. The Medicare Savings Program, if your state covers your Part B premium, puts more than $2,000 a year directly back into your Social Security check. In the most generous version, deductibles and copays go away on top of that. The Energy Assistance Program can direct several hundred to close to $1,000 toward your heating and cooling bills, paid straight to your utility. And SSI, even a partial check for someone whose retirement income is modest, can add several $1,000s a year to your monthly income. For a senior who qualifies for all three, the combined effect is not a small amount. It's the difference between a retirement that works every month and one that requires choosing. The seniors collecting all three are not in a fundamentally different situation from you. They simply found out these programs existed and made the calls. That's the only difference. Now you know they exist. If you take one thing from this video, make it this. Do not make the decision in your own head without ever speaking to anyone that you earn too much or have too much or somehow don't qualify. The income limits are higher than most people expect. The numbers moved this year. The only cost of finding out is a phone call. Drop a comment and tell me which of the three you're going to check first and what state you live in. I reply personally and will point you toward the exact office and number for where you are. If this video opened your eyes to something you didn't know was there, like it and share it with one person in your life who is 65 or older and on a fixed income. You may be the only person who tells them any of this exists, and that one conversation could be worth thousands of dollars to someone you love every year going forward. I'll see you in the next one. The information in this video is for general educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute personalized financial, legal, or tax advice. Program eligibility, income thresholds, and benefit amounts vary by state and change over time. Always verify your specific situation directly with the relevant program office or a qualified advisor before taking action.